he had an acute injury yesterday, likely on the play before his last one, where he tore a ligament in his wrist. That will likely require surgery and require him to be out for the rest of the season.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a double upload day for us today because we got some very unfortunate breaking news in regards to the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow. Before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, leading up to the season, I spammed predictions at you guys consistently. Michael Porter Jr. needed over 5.5 rebounds in his season debut. Tyreek Hill just needed a touchdown, and Steph Curry just needed 1 point. Shout out to those that tailed. For those of you guys that were able to make money, we're giving away our picks for free all season long for the NBA and NFL on my Instagram at @TheFlightMike. And right now, when you use promo code Mikerophone on PrizePicks, they'll match your deposit up until $100. Thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? This entire season for the Cincinnati Bengals would be summarized and characterized by injuries. I mean, from the very beginning of the season, Joe Burrow suffered a right calf strain during training camp. And it seemed like the very first part of the season was Joe Burrow trying to get back to what he was despite the calf strain. People were begging him, Joe, please just take a week or two off, get that calf right, and then come back and play football. Luckily for Joe Burrow, he was able to play through the calf strain until I guess it didn't become as much of a problem. And to Joe Burrow's credit, he was having a masterful season. Up until this point, he's only thrown 6 interceptions. He looked like his regular self. And this is very significant because I've stated in previous videos that the Cincinnati Bengals window of opportunity to compete might be getting smaller and smaller. It's not that I think they're a bad team. It's that 2 months ago, the Cincinnati Bengals made Joe Burrow the highest paid player in the NFL and in NFL history. A 5-year, $275 million contract extension, surpassing Justin Herbert, which is fantastic and certainly well-deserved considering how competitive the Bengals have been ever since selecting Joe Burrow. The problem is that the Bengals have a ton of talent that they need to keep on the roster in order to stay competitive. There are questions surrounding T. Higgins' future because he is on the final year of his contract and he still hasn't signed a major contract. He can without a doubt be a #1 wide receiver for a different team, and that's certainly going to be the case considering the fact that Jamar Chase is going to be up for a contract extension 2 years after, or maybe even sooner depending on when they want to negotiate the terms. But Jamar Chase was a first-round pick and he has a 5th-year option, so that kind of buys the Cincinnati Bengals some time. Sure, T. Higgins could be franchise tagged, but they'll probably lose Tyler Boyd or Chidobe Awuzie or DJ Reader. At some point or another, a part of the Cincinnati Bengals team is going to have to take a gigantic hit because Joe Burrow's rookie scale contract is up. It's just the way the NFL works. And about 3 or 4 years from now, that contract is probably going to be below market and they're going to have a huge window for competition once again. It was crucial for the Bengals this year to do everything that they possibly could to make it back to the playoffs and have Joe Burrow try to carry them to a Super Bowl one last time. And as admirable as I thought it was that Joe Burrow was playing on a calf strain, a part of me felt like it was very reckless. And this is speaking as a fan of Joe Burrow's game. You see, this past week during Thursday Night Football, there was a huge marquee matchup between the Ravens and the Bengals, which is must-see TV considering the fact that this is the best division in football right now. Going into this matchup, all 4 teams in this division are in the playoff picture. The Bengals are trying to claw their way up. The Ravens are at the very top. So the Bengals desperately needed to get a win here if they wanted any chance at potentially winning the division, which before was a very reasonable possibility. Now, going into the game, there was a clip of Joe Burrow walking into the arena with a cast on his hand. If you slow it down right here, you obviously see that this man has a cast on his throwing hand, more specifically on his wrist. The reason why this is very interesting is because the moment that this was pointed out by the media, the Bengals deleted the video, like immediately. If that doesn't sound sketchy, then how about the fact that Joe Burrow would actually play in this game? And while he would play in this game, Joe Burrow would sustain an injury that didn't even involve contact. He just threw the football and his wrist gave out and he couldn't grip the football anymore. So he was out of Thursday Night Football. Former Heisman Trophy candidate Jake Browning came in relief for him. And if you even looked at his hand, man, Joe Burrow's hand doesn't look like he's going to be good anytime soon. But Bengals fans still held out hope that he could return. Joe Burrow even said that he felt a pop. I mean, at least according to my expert lip reading, sounds like him saying that he heard a pop. But unfortunately, it seems like it's much worse. And you could hear Zach Taylor giving us the horrible news himself.
You know, he had an acute injury yesterday, likely on the play before his last one, where he tore a ligament in his wrist that will likely require surgery and require him to be out for the rest of the season. So we're still gathering more information on that, but that seems to be where it's headed right now. So that's the news, and you know, just talking to guys on the team, excited to rally around Jake, and we've got a lot of great players in this team, and so excited to see this team really band together for these last 7 weeks and find a way, you know. So we're excited for that opportunity, but obviously disappointed for Joe.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, according to Ian Rappaport and Zach Taylor, Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow is out for the year with a torn ligament, per Zach Taylor. He had his MRI this morning. Jake Browning, who finished last night, is his backup. I honestly want to put the blame on Zach Taylor for this. I mean, it's very typical for a great quarterback, especially a player like Joe Burrow, to try to push himself as much as he can to play. It's your job as the head coach to protect Joe Burrow from himself. Joe Burrow wanting to play is just a characteristic of a great competitive quarterback, and honestly, Bengals fans should be very thankful that they have a quarterback like him that wants to play through these injuries. But it's your job as the head coach to tell him no way Jake Browning's going in. And to be honest, this should have started from the beginning of the season. This should have been a thing from the very moment the season started. You got away with him playing on a calf strain, but what if he tore his Achilles? That could have definitely been the case as well, especially if Joe Burrow was a little bit older. A lot of people are pointing the blame finger in multiple directions, like RG3 is saying it's not Zach Taylor's fault, it's Thursday Night Football's fault. They're not in the best interests of the player's health. And although I think that's a very legitimate argument from RG3, at the end of the day, this injury is from Joe Burrow having an injured wrist and straight up having a cast on his wrist and playing anyway. And I could understand why. You're playing your division rival on national TV, you got off to a slow start this year, and you want to make sure that you can make up some ground. It was a very important game, arguably the most important game of the Cincinnati Bengals season. And Zach Taylor should be able to look at that situation and say, hey, I understand, but we can't have you go out there and we can't afford to lose you for the rest of the season. This season's been very frustrating with the injuries, man. I mean, Aaron Rodgers in the beginning of the season, Deshaun Watson this past week. Now we have Joe Burrow getting injured. Anthony Richardson was injured a few weeks ago. Matthew Stafford has been injured consistently. Injuries are never something you want to see, especially an injury to your starting QB. But in this case, your coach needs to do a better job protecting his starting QB. Now, the NFL is also going to be investigating why the Bengals did not list Joe Burrow on their injury report when the team posted a picture of him wearing a device on his wrist Wednesday night, and he appeared to be hampered by the injury early in the Thursday night game that he later left. The league confirmed today. The initial picture of Burrow wearing a device that looked like a soft cast on his thumb was posted by the Bengals only to be deleted later. The NFL routinely looks into matters of compliance with the injury report policy and will do so in this instance as well. Teams can be fined or even potentially lose a draft pick. There were doctors calling this out in the beginning of the game, saying Joe Burrow's wearing a right splint, maybe it's a wrist ergonomics sleeve, it's probably nothing, but it's at least worth pointing out because he's not listed on the injury report. And Josina Anderson provides some really good context in this situation. Going into the game where we were speculating what's going on with Joe Burrow, and while he was warming up, Josina thought that either this was a really big to-do about nothing on his wrist, or it sure feels like he's really showing us and the media and himself that everything is fine. The problem with that is, even if he wasn't fine and he actually really needed the brace he came off of the team bus wearing TNF Eve, then he should have wore it or whatever was necessary to better protect against the tackles on him last night. Players need their hands to help brace any falls. That ability is compromised if the hand is in fact compromised. If a potential decision to not wear the brace was in part to lower the conversation on a budding controversy, given that Joe Burrow was not listed on the team's injury report in advance of a short turnaround game, it only added insult to injury, literally. Not only did Joe Burrow not finish the game, he's now out for the rest of the season, financially impacting the team and him, and it won't stop league punishment on top of that if a violation is still determined. If you're the Cincinnati Bengals, you're panicking at this point. So what's going on? Why did Joe Burrow have a ergonomic sleeve or a splint on his hand? Why was it not reported? Well, this is what Joe Burrow has to say about it.
Going into the game, what led to that? This is a completely different thing. It's not uncommon for guys to wear compression sleeves on plane because when you go up to that altitude, things can swell up. Football, you have a lot of bumps and bruises. This is a completely new injury.
This is a very easy claim to refute, because if it was just a compression sleeve, then why did the Cincinnati Bengals delete the clip after they were being called out for it? Something isn't adding up, and the Bengals don't look good for this at all whatsoever. I mean, Joe Burrow arrived in the arena putting his right hand in a warmer. You're not doing that for compression purposes. You're doing that to keep blood flow in your hand. Now, here's the craziest part. The NFL's pressing the Bengals for some answers. According to Josina Anderson, she was just on the phone with an NFL league source 15 minutes ago that said that the league office is looking into the Bengals to respond right away to their investigation into Joe Burrow's right wrist injury and his absence off the team's injury report leading into Thursday Night Football last night, adding, "It'll be interesting to see what the Bengals are going to say to this." The league source added, if a violation is determined by the Bengals, they could get fined. Losing draft picks is typically reserved as a penalty for repeat offenders. They also added that investigations into the injury report liberties are pretty common. So this is just a gigantic disaster. I mean, I don't think anyone is believing that Joe Burrow wore that as a compression sleeve to reduce pressure on his wrist. I think we all know that he was injured and he's just trying to save his head coach's ass. At the end of the day, this sucks. I mean, I hate injuries as much as the next guy. Aaron Rodgers is out for the season. Well, hopefully not. Maybe he comes back soon if the Jets start winning games. Kirk Cousins injured. Deshaun Watson out for the season. Joe Burrow out for the season. Anthony Richardson also out for the season. Daniel Jones is out for the season. It just sucks to see this many QB injuries, man. Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about all this? If you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan, are you mad at Zach Taylor for allowing Joe Burrow to play? What do you think the actual story is? Do you agree with what I'm saying here? Or do you think something else is going on and you disagree with me? Let me know in the comment section down below.